Corner, presented by Jennifer. The King's Assassin, Chapter 14. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen the first few videos of The King's Assassin, I suggest you go view those now, as this is a continuation of that story. Stop being an assassin. Aldrich wrapped me in his arms. Oh, Aldrich, I sighed. I sat in a flurry of fabrics and silk on the floor near his feet. If only things were so simple. It just kills me that you have to worry about something so simple as how you feel. Or you'll be put to death. Shouldn't it be my decision anyways, as your king? It's an odd situation that we assassins are in. We are a king's subjects, but we must abide by guild law. I placed my head in his lap and stared at the tapestry across the room. His father sat atop a mighty white steed, holding a bloody sword high in the air. His last mighty victory. Bodies strewn about him as his army celebrated victory. It was getting harder to resist him. There was no reason why we couldn't be as we were when children. Friends. Very close friends. The guild had no laws against friendship. Aldrich? He never answered me. Aldrich? He remained silent. I sat up and noticed he was slumped over. His dark hair hung in his face, and a dart stuck out of his fair skin. I gasped and fell back, shocked. I scanned the room for signs of anyone there with us. Plucking the object from his flesh, I inhaled the tip deeply. It smelled foul. Placing my hand on the side of his neck, I closed my eyes and held my breath as I waited for any signs of life. A slight thump beneath my fingers gave me slight relief. I dragged the king out of his chair and across the room. He was much heavier than he appeared. Come on, Aldrich, wake up. I grunted and groaned as I sat him up in a crevice in the corner of the room. Stay here till I find out what's going on. I brushed his hair out of his eyes and gently kissed his lips. My heart sped up. I'd never been so intimate with him before. He looked peaceful, almost as though he'd just fallen asleep rather than whatever happened to him. I stood and strolled across the room to where we'd been sitting. Sitting down, I put my hand where the dart was and looked in the direction it came from. Curtains flapped in the wind from an open window. I furrowed my brow and stood. The night was cool, and the balcony was large. An assailant could easily have been out here, or across the courtyard. A flash of dark fabric in the dim candlelight across the way caught my attention. I reached under my skirt and withdrew the dagger strapped to my thigh. I didn't think there would be so many attempts on the king's life as this. Someone really wanted the man dead. I crossed to where I hid him and hugged the tapestry above him. I beg your pardon, King Edmund. You must protect your son one more time, I muttered to the victorious king. The tapestry fell on Aldrich's head, concealing him even more. The main door creaked open, and I pressed my back to the stone wall. The door opened with a click, and the room fell silent. Someone hired an assassin. I waited and watched from my position around the corner. Someone dressed in head-to-toe black came into view. I wasn't sure if it was a man or a woman. Not that I cared. They were a threat to my king, and they needed to be taken care of. Permanently. Aldrich's chair faced the fireplace, turned away the new assassin. Turned away from the new assassin. Watching with increased interest, I was surprised when the assassin pulled out a sword and rammed it through the back of the chair. Amateur. They flipped the chair over and yelled out in frustration, spinning around, searching the room for Aldrich. They were too late, though. I already crept up on them. As they turned to face me, I had my dagger to her throat. "Who are you?" I asked. "The person hired to kill King Aldrich, and now you." "Your name," I said through clenched teeth. "That is no concern of yours. No consequences once you are dead," she spat. I reached up and ripped her cowl off. I did not recognize the blonde beauty. Her hypnotic blue eyes were cold and calculating. Who are you?" I pressed the knife deeper into her soft porcelain flesh. A small trail of blood ran down her delicate neck. She flinched, but her stone face never wavered. "I suppose I should be asking who you are, lady." "Don't worry of such things. Shouldn't you like to have your body returned to your family? I'm going to kill you." She nodded her head and sighed heavily. "Who sent you?" She shook her head. "Do you have any last words?" I asked. "Only that I didn't get to finish my mission." I removed my dagger from the girl's neck and rammed it into her stomach. She sank to her knees. She held onto her guts and me. Her hands turned dark crimson where the blood spilled from the wound. Her breathing staggered and seemed pained. "Put me out of my misery, please. Tell me who's hired you." I can't tell you," she stammered. "And I guess you're going to have to suffer for about 20 minutes more." I knelt beside her and grasped the hilt of the dagger, turning it slightly. She screamed in agony as the steel ripped open whatever they pierced inside. She gargled, blood pouring from her mouth. As the life left her body, I watched her fall over. Her breathing grew shallow, and her skin became an ashen pallor. "I'm sorry, young lady, that your life has had to end in such a tragic way. If you didn't attack my king, I wouldn't have taken such drastic measures." She sputtered and spat as she attempted to speak, more blood spilling from her mouth. "Shh! Don't use the last of your energy now. Nothing can be done. I'll find out who sent you the hard way. It's a shame, though. My job could have been easy." Her eyes rolled to the back of her head before closing for good. I stood and walked to a long golden rope at the far end of the room. I tugged on it and retreated to Aldrich. I tugged the tapestry off his still slumbering body and pulled his head onto my lap. I brushed his hair aside and kissed his forehead. He snored softly as his personal attendants and 2 guards entered the room. "Madam, what happened?" "Andrew, good you're here," I said. "An assassin attempted to kill the king. She shot him with a tranquilizer dart. I killed her. The body needs to be disposed of." I pointed to the dead assassin. "One of you needs to carry the king to his chambers. Please." The bigger of the 2 guards picked Aldrich up and tossed him over his shoulder. The second wrapped the assassin in her cloak and walked in the opposite direction. I followed Aldrich. "Will he be all right, madam?" "In time. I'll be staying with him. Please don't allow anyone into his room. I shut the door and proceeded to undress him. If you were awake, you would love this. Aldrich. Digging through his closets, I grabbed a sleeping shirt for myself. Quickly removing my own gowns and undergarments, I slipped on the king's sleeping shirt and climbed into bed with him. I would not be leaving his side until he woke. No matter how inappropriate it was for me to be in such close proximity to him, with so little clothes, mattered not. I had to make sure he was safe. I had to be sure he would wake up. Perhaps I was falling for my king despite of my best efforts.